time is winding down for Americans to get their stimulus checks issued. During the height of the pandemic, new Government Accountability Office report says up to 10 million Americans may not have claimed their money. Many of them low-income or Social Security recipients who are not required.
Joe Biden is taking big action this week, and he has issued his first veto of his presidency on a new piece of legislation. Now, many actually disagree with this decision, and new data has also revealed that more than 5 million households are still behind on rent, but experts have suggested that there's a way to address this issue. I put Messi and Ronaldo on the and there is a way to solve the problem. Joe Biden issued the first veto, everybody, and now Republican lawmakers led the push to pass of a resolution through Congress, arguing the rules pushes against a liberal agenda. While Democrats say it's not about ideology and will help investors instead. The resolution, which would rescind a Department of Labor rule, passed both chambers of Congress, with Joe Manchin voting with Republicans at the Senate. Biden even said on Twitter that they couldn't take into consideration investments that wouldn't be impacted by climate, impacted by overpaying executives, and that's why he decided to veto it. Now, opponents of the rule could try to override Biden's veto, but at this point it appears unlikely that they could get 2/3 of the majority needed in each chamber to do so. Now, Biden's first presidential veto reflects the reality of a changed political order of Washington, with Republicans now in control of the House after they won back the chamber. Democrats controlled both the House and Senate, and now the president's party only has a rural majority in the Senate. Most legislation passed by the current GOP House will not be able to pass the Democratic-controlled Senate, but the resolution to overturn the investment rule only needed a simple majority to pass in the Senate. And Republican lawmakers advanced it under the Congressional Review Act, which allows Congress to roll back regulations from the executive branch without needing to clear the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, which is necessary for most bills. Even opponents of the rules have even argued that it politicizes retirement investments and that the Biden administration is using it as a way to promote his agenda. Now, with roughly 2 months before the USDA and Health and Human Services ends the 3 crisis years of public health emergency, more than 5 million of the nation's households remain behind in the rent. Altogether, tenants continue to owe nearly $11 billion in rental debt during the first 2 weeks of February. On average, renters who are behind owe around $2,000. And fortunately, the public crisis led to the creation of a number of new protections for struggling renters, which is some of which are going to be in place for a while. Because of this, on Tuesday, the Texas Rent Relief Program began accepting applications for aid, but it's already scheduled to stop doing so. Now, a notice on its website reads that within the first 24 hours of reopening, requests for assistance far exceeded available funding. It's worth researching and familiarizing yourself with any rights that you as a tenant may have, because it's important for you to get the rights expanded during this time. Now, for in certain cities, people will not be getting stimulus money, everybody, and that's just how it is. But here's a way for you to claim extra stimulus cash in your city, if you qualify for it. First of all, in some places, you're entitled to get a certain amount of money with an eviction, such as at least 90 days in specific cases like Portland, Maine. During the school years, educators and families with school-age children recently got the new eviction protections in California.
The cost of drug companies to provide insulin, a vial of insulin, costs less than $10 to make. But there are many families, like families I met last week in Culpeper, Virginia, paying $300 per vial for medicine they need every single day for type 1 diabetes. If they have good health care coverage, this family does, but they still have to pay $5,600 for prescriptions before their insurance kicks in. Think about that. 200,000 American children with type 1 diabetes. Think about being one of those parents. You don't have insurance, but you know your child to live needs that insulin. How do you look that child in the eye when you don't have the income or you don't have the insurance? What do? Not only you worry your child may die, but you're stripped of your dignity. You're stripped of your sense of who you are, not being able to afford that child's needs. Look, we can cap the cost of insulin to $35 a month. Drug companies will still make money.
Some states are trying to step up where Congress failed. In Vermont, Republican governor and a Democratic state legislature signed off on a $1,000 tax credit for every child 5 and under. Phil Scott, the state's Republican governor, had initially proposed a wider set of tax cuts. In a statement, Governor Scott said it would have helped a broader cross-section of taxpayers, but that this bill is a step in the right direction. Everybody, what are your thoughts on President Biden so far? So it is here. Lawmakers have approved a new financial relief program. These checks will be worth at least $300. And now new extra stimulus cash will be making its way to thousands of Americans in the form of $300 direct payments as soon as this summer. Hawaii's governor first proposed a tax refund in his 2022 State of the State address. The governor signed it into law this week. He told reporters at the start of 2022, "We made a commitment to support programs and policies that would help our residents get back on their feet." Both bills represent a collaborative effort to bring the people of Hawaii some relief as we continue to recover from a 2-year crisis. So in order to be eligible for a tax refund under this legislation, you have to earn less than $100,000 a year. And for those whose earnings are above those thresholds, you will receive $100. The tax rebate package will benefit taxpayers and dependents who filed in the state, and is expected to cost the state about $250 million. That means an eligible family of 4 could earn up to $1,200 in state funds. And according to the Department of Taxation, refunds are due to start rolling out in the last week of August. The measure also commits $500 million to Hawaii's rainy day fund and prepays $300 million for retirement liabilities. The second bill passed increases the state's minimum wage for the first time since 2018, from $10 an hour to $12 an hour starting October, and it will increase to $14 an hour in 2024, $16 an hour in 2026, and then $18 an hour in 2028. Now, rebates will continue for hundreds of thousands of people in New Mexico. However, unlike the first 2 rounds of stimulus, in May and June, the last anticipated effort from July have some strings attached. Specifically, the upcoming rebates have an income threshold, meaning those who made over a certain amount of money in the 2021 calendar year will not be eligible. The latest tax rebate checks are eligible for New Mexico residents who filed their 2021 taxes. As mentioned, there's an income threshold tied to these rebates, which is different for both single filers and joint filers. According to the New Mexico Tax and Revenue Department, the rebates should be processing during the first full week of July, or next week, and Moore says it will take the full month for the rebates to get out to eligible taxpayers. So for many people, you may not receive a payment for several weeks. As for how the payments will be rolled out, well, the state will pay July rebates automatically, via direct deposit or a paper check. Checks will be sent to those who don't have a direct deposit bank information on file with the state. The state expects to print about 210,000 paper checks. So in printing 14,000 checks per day, the process is expected to take several weeks to complete. By comparison, the state says it expects to distribute about 500,000 payments via direct deposit.
Thank you very much, and I thank the gentleman. The gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Adams, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chair Powell. Good to see you again. I'm happy that we can now